when you were describing your current sort of pattern of not having the social battery to do other stuff, and maybe it is you have different priorities, you're a bit wiser now and stuff like that. It made me think of a discussion that's quite sort of prevalent online at the moment about empathy versus compassion. And I think part of the issue here is that there's various ways to define empathy and various ways to define compassion. And sort of like pop psych breakdown of it currently is that there's a version of this like feeling where you expose yourself to wearing the other person's feelings and you basically experience them with them. And there's a version of this where you can go through you can feel for the person and, like you said, hold the baton with them. And then when it's over, you pass the baton back to them, and then you're sort of in the clear, and you don't have to carry that with you. And to me, my understanding of it is that it's about boundaries. And one of the exercises I learned with one therapist I was working with in a particularly bad time where there was kind of like a bad actor who was very volatile at the time. She would literally walk me through a few different visualizations. One was a shield that didn't work so well, and then it became like a force field. And I thought this was ridiculous shit, right? Because it was like a legit therapist teaching me, like, what the fuck is this? But in those intense conversations with a volatile person, when I managed to learn this odd skill of like putting the force field up, and we had our own language about it, right? Where I could receive the information, but the intensity of the emotion and the anger would just bounce off, and I would visualize it bouncing off. That's not going to hurt me. I'm not going to absorb that, but I'm going to take in the information. It actually worked for me. So I don't know if all of this, it seems to me like all of this like wrapped up into the same thing. And it comes to mind because you brought up like in helping professions, and a lot of people that work with like people in pain or who are caregivers or who are parents of like difficult children and stuff, they're like carrying this stuff and they're absorbing hurt, and like maybe there's something here to discuss. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need to learn how to put on, I usually say, protective gear with certain people, right? If you take everything verbatim, it's not actually what the person wants you to be taking in anyway. You know, I mean, very easy example. When I'm pent up because I haven't told you about a bunch of things that I'm upset with you about, and then I start, you know, you give me the space to tell you one thing, I just start word vomiting like everything I can possibly think of. And if you took it exactly at, you know, the level I was giving it, that's not actually what I want you to take in. It is said with a lot of intensity, right? Because it's, in a way, it's venting, right? So I think you have to scale it depending on the person. And you also need to try to hold the space for the emotion to be there, but then find a way to understand the most important bits that they want you to take away from that situation.
Is that actually what the term holding space means? I've never understood that term. I've always like, the fuck are you talking about holding space?
But the way I like to say...
But that makes sense. It's a space for the emotion to be, and you can be around it, but you don't have to like take it. Yeah, you don't have to be in it.
So it's like you're holding a space, right? Like,
that makes sense.
For the emotion to be there, but not like...
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that's a very helpful visual, right? So it's not just like if you're in a helping profession and having to talk to people who are dealing with serious shit all the time. You may be just talking to a friend. You don't have to you don't have to be a full empath about it and like, you know, now you can't sleep at night because you're worried about your friend.
In fact, I feel it's unhelpful to be that sort of person.
How so?
If you are the sort of person that everything somebody tells you, or you know, you read the news and you hear something terrible that's happened, and then you just can't stop thinking about it, and you keep thinking, oh, I feel so awful that I'm then now living my life in this state of freeze where I can't live, I can't do anything, I can't sleep, I can't eat. I think it's unhelpful to be that sort of person, and you will be less effective at putting good into the world if you take it on that strongly.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you agree with the sort of loose definition of empathy versus compassion that I'm kind of dancing around here? Or is that not actually a helpful way to
I
look
think
at
there's just too many definitions for words out there, so we just have to define exactly what we're speaking about.
And so
But
if you were dealing with a client who maybe had a pattern of, I don't know, people pleasing, and maybe you've covered some stuff with them about how they've grown up and all that, but their day-to-day behavior is such that when their husband is mad about something, instead of fight, flight, or freeze, they choose fawn, and then they just kind of cower and like wear the person's emotion. And then basically the way I see it, maybe this is wrong, you base your state of calm and happiness on how that person feels. And once they feel okay, then you're okay. How would you talk about this concept of empathy and shield or protective gear and all that with them?
well, when your partner or your friend is struggling, you struggle right alongside them. So you're falling to the depths of how they feel, meaning maybe you can't sleep, you can't stop crying, you can't breathe well, your body feels awful, right? You keep thinking about the situation over and over and over. If you're doing it to that extent, then there's no way for you to be that helpful in that moment.
What's a
Like-
better way to be then?
A better way to be is to hold the space for it. So tell me more. Okay, how are you feeling? Okay, what's that like? How do you think I could be helpful here? What do you think you need right now? Right? And so it's letting them express whatever it is that they're feeling, not judging, like making sure they don't feel judged in any way, making sense of why they feel that way. Oh, that kind of makes sense because, like, didn't you say that how you grew up kind of makes you sensitive to this sort of thing? So makes sense you might feel that way, right? Is that why you feel that way? Helps them make more sense of the emotion, and then be like, all right, well, what do you think? Do you feel okay now that you've talked about it? Or do you need something else? Like, and so you're helping them think about
You're
it.
helping them navigate the whole difficult situation without taking on the full set of responsibility and emotions associated with it.
And I feel like if you do it that way, then hopefully what happens is that in a moment where you crumble and you're at your worst and you're experiencing it full on, that person doesn't go to where you are either. They can stay in a place that's more neutral so that they can then help you. Because if you're both crumbling and you can't think at all and you're both crying your faces off, neither person can think of what to do.
Yeah, and I think if it's something really, really difficult and it's like deep grief, or it's, I don't know, a loss of someone really special, or you lost your job, or something like really life shifting in a bad way, if you both fall apart because you just take on the other person's emotions completely and accept it as your responsibility to ride that with them, then you're going to have a really, really, really difficult time. Actually, maybe what the relationship needs in that situation is for one person to be able to like hold space and help navigate, but carry the torch of like, look, I still have my job. I'll cover these things, and you know, it's okay. Like I'll handle all these things as you kind of go through the process that you need to go through because you're grieving or whatever it is. You might be sleeping like shit, but I'm going to sleep well, and I'm going to protect my mental health. I'm going to make sure I still go to yoga. I'm going to make sure that you can't be a support network for me. So I'm being proactive and letting my friends know. And so like I'll lean on them a little bit more. That's like a more mature way to go through this process, right? Because especially past like 35, like the life shit gets really intense, and sometimes we go through these things, right? And yeah, I didn't even think about it from that perspective until you were talking about it. Like it's like risk management to learn the skill of not going deep into your partner's emotions, right?
Yeah, or friends or anybody.
Or friends. Yeah.
It's a funny thought, right? But we often are so busy looking at what other people are going through and trying to help other people, or some of us maybe judging other people, basically looking at other people's situations. But if we just looked at our own situation and worked really hard on doing our own thing as well as we could, if everybody did that, then the whole world would probably be in a better off spot.
Yeah, that's quite a good thought exercise. Instead of this external focus on how everybody else is messing up and how shit they are at whatever they're doing,
Or what they need to do better or differently.
let's just work on our little thing.
Yeah. So then if you used an analogy for it, it's almost like if everyone was just driving their own car properly instead of like, hey, stay in your line. Hey, what are you doing? Like that. Oh, shoot, that guy got an accident. Then if everyone just focused hard, then we'd all be like less accidents would be happening, probably.
Yeah, maybe. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me.
That being said, we are social creatures, and I think we're just concerned. You can't 100% be unconcerned.
Yeah, I think the concern is one side of it. I think it's probably true that we are quite critical externally of like other people's bullshit and what they need to fix. Oh, one thing that I find hard to reconcile is I think we've also gotten quite, I don't know if this is too judgy. I think we've also gotten quite bad at living in the muck of whatever it is that we're going through. I remember when COVID hit and my business was struggling at the time, and I was sitting at dinner with your grandma at your old house before she passed, and everybody else had left the dinner table, and she could see that I was really sort of like bothered and troubled. And she's super sweet, right? And quite intuitive. So she asked me like, well, what's going on? What's happening? How come you look so troubled or so stressed, I think. I was like, oh, you know, there's this crisis going on now. So I think my business, blah, 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 blah. And then she kind of chuckled in the way that she does. She says, crisis? And then she looked, it was like a movie moment. She looked down at the dinner table where there was more food than we could eat. And then she looked up at the ceiling, and then she's like, you call this a crisis? And then she started telling me about World War II, and it was a great conversation because it snapped me out of my like, oh, everything sucks, like, oh my goodness, like the world is gonna end, kinda. But actually, my world was not going to end. Maybe a project that I'm working on that I put a lot of effort into might end, but it didn't mean that like life was over, right? Like, and you're talking about a person here who is maybe the happiest person that I've ever met, like almost delusionally so.
Even though she's had many people in her life die.
She had so many people really close to her pass away. I remember a few months before she passed, having a conversation with her, and she told me, yeah, she's kind of looking forward to it because she said, I know so many more people who have died than are alive, so I just feel like I get to see them soon. I'm like, what a good attitude to have.